So it's pretty much the end times for Dungeons & Dragons right now. After 2 years of scandals, Hasbro look like they might in fact be finally pulling the plug on abandoning the game like you'd abandon your gran after learning that grandpapa lost all your inheritance money on craps in the 80s. And you know, hospital bills for elder care these days? Pretty pricey. And I'll be honest, when last year Dungeons & Dragons historian Ben Riggs claimed that the D&D golden age would be over soon, I don't think that any of us quite realized just how fast it would happen. We've gotten cancelled VTTs, the lead designer of D&D Chris Perkins is retiring, AI is likely coming to the game, and I'm pretty sure that I saw Chris Cox, CEO of Hasbro, go into a bathroom stall with a family-sized bucket of Ben & Jerry's last week. However, while many in the TTRPG community are worried about the future, and rightly so, there is still hope. There is a savior that can save us. No, not Jesus Christ, they got rid of him. No, I'm talking about the savior of role-playing games, because there is a bright, shiny RPG ready to step into the limelight and become the face of the role-playing game hobby, to become the game that everybody complains about is all that anybody wants to play, and a game that can welcome casuals and normies and new guys into the hobby, and it is brought to us by the golden ones, the 7, 8, 10 blessed apostles of RPG greatness. I'm talking, of course, about Critical Role and their new baby Daggerheart, the game that is best prepared to take over the RPG hobby as the big main game that everybody coalesces around like herd animals that are too slow to outrun a hunter. And now that Hasbro has decided to effectively shoot itself in the head, Critical Role and Daggerheart are perfectly placed to take over because everything is going just fine in Critical Role land. No scandals, no nothing. What's that? There's a what in the what now? To dust, you say? Uh-oh. Okay, everything I just said, cancel that. Turns out there's just been a massive scandal in the Daggerheart Critical Role community, and it might just kill this new pretender to the throne right as it steps up to the plate. Ah, jeez, can I get some good news this year? Oh well, it could be worse. You could have picked up a strange drifter on the side of the road and offered to let him stay over at your house, but when he got inside, he started jumping up and down on your bed saying, I'm a bouncy boy, I'm a bouncy boy. And when you asked him to stop, he got real violent and smashed your TV and screamed, no more talkies! And he got glass everywhere, and then you got cut on the glass, and you got really hurt, so you called up your insurance company, and you told them that you got injured, but then they said, we don't cover a strange man, that's not in your policy, and you say, no, it's right here, I can see the drifter policy in the pamphlet, and then the insurance guy said, I know you are, but what am I? And you said, what? That doesn't make any sense, and then he said, I know you are, but what am I? And you said, you can't talk to me like that, it's illegal, and then he says, Jinx, you're it, and he hangs up on you, and every time you call again, the person who answers the phone just makes a fart noise with their mouth. Has this ever happened to you? Well, not surprising, because there are many such cases. Insurance companies are notorious for lowballing client claims, because when you're seriously hurt, your injury could be worth millions, and Morgan & Morgan do not settle for lowball offers. You see, fighting big companies takes a big law firm, and as America's largest injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan are ready to take on insurance companies of every size. Because if you are in an accident or injured in any way, you should know how to protect your rights. The fee is absolutely free unless you win, and you can start a claim with Morgan & Morgan in just a click. It's very easy. You can go to www.forthepeople.com/dungeons or click the link in the description below. And thanks to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so Daggerheart. I'm sure there's still some people who don't know about it, and that's kind of a problem, but it is the new TTRPG from Critical Role's publishing arm, Darrington Press. It's a fantasy RPG where you play a character from a strange race, and you pick a fantasy class to determine how you fight and interact with the world. And then you go on adventures with friends into dungeons and fight monsters like dragons. Sound familiar? Well, it should. It's very clearly inspired by Steve Jackson's The Fantasy Trip. However, I guess it's also quite strongly positioned to thematically be very much like a traditional D&D game. However, what adds a little bit of spice to the proceedings is that it's specifically designed for the Critical Role style of D&D game. You know, the kind narrative first, roleplay heavy action adventure. And honestly, that is pretty much the zeitgeist of how D&D is mostly played these days, at least by the new guys. But while it's thematically similar, mechanically it is very, very different from Dungeons & Dragons. For example, it doesn't use a d20, it uses 2d12. Huh? It makes liberal use of cards to denote special powers and class abilities. And it has a non-binary binary resolution system, i.e. you don't just succeed or fail, you can succeed with fear or fail with hope, and vice versa. And there's little frog guys as well. I mean, I call mine Frogulon. What's he getting up to? And if you want to know more about Daggerheart, I did actually review the game. Yes, I do more than just clickbait, hard to believe, but you wouldn't know about that because it goes to another content platform, specifically Patreon. Every month I do a big bonus video reviewing something cool, or sometimes really bad, as I desperately try to get patrons to support this channel because YouTube keeps demonetizing me, and also I'm pretty sure I'm not very advertiser friendly. I mean, did you see that ad I did for Morgan & Morgan? And one day the sponsors are going to find out, and then I'm gonna have to live in a box again. So, you know, check out my Patreon. It's linked below. Thanks. But long story short, Daggerheart is pretty much laser focused at getting right into the armor chinks of the modern D&D audience, and it has enjoyed quite a bit of anticipation from the broader RPG community. All last year, there were news article after news article, preview shows, press releases, actual plays. Daggerheart was the up-and-coming game to take over from D&D. Everybody was hyped, everybody was talking about it, and it was constantly being shoved in our faces, like the lifestyle of the Amish. Look at them. And their horses, not needing smartphones. I mean, I don't mind it happening in private, I just want it shoved in my face, you know? But people were excited for Daggerheart. There was a lot of anticipation, and frankly, for good reason. Most new players want to do what Daggerheart offers. They want to go on epic adventures, do the silly voices, I recommend that one, and have story arcs for their very special and unique character, the human fighter. Add on the fact that it's created and supported by Critical Role, you know, Matt Mercer, and arguably Daggerheart is currently the most important RPG coming out right now. It is the natural inheritor of the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition crown as the biggest RPG in the market, and it could become the gateway into the broader TTRPG hobby, the one that lots of casual people must pass through to enter the market, and that means it could replace D&D as it is today. And also, I mean, let's be honest, Critical Role were one of the main contributors to D&D's success, and they have access to a massive casual audience. So if any game can do it, it's Daggerheart. And if they can't capture the market like D&D, well, I mean, I don't think anybody can. And I know there's a lot of people that don't want that to be the case. They don't want a big main game, or they don't even think that D&D could go anywhere. But I think personally that it is super important to have a game like Daggerheart right now. Because honestly, Hasbro, the owners of D&D, that looks like it's currently imploding in on itself right now. Between canceling its flagship all-in $1 million sigil program, now Chris Perkins, the architect of D&D 5th edition, 5.5 new D&D, retiring from the company, and then add on top the general economy stuff that's happening right now, and it's hitting toys and board games especially badly. More than ever, it looks like D&D might actually, and I do not say this lightly, but it might actually be dying. And that's been claimed by lunatics before, but I'm not a lunatic. And I could genuinely see next year having only one new announcement of D&D content, a new fucking branded cock ring or something. Well, it doesn't have to be a cock ring per se. The point is that it'll be a branded tie-in product and not an actual like book or real piece of content for the game D&D, as Hasbro switch from making D&D content to instead making D&D content and tie-in trash. That increasingly looks like that might be the future of D&D. No, we need a game to step up and fill that gap, like Play-Doh that has been inserted inside a human orifice, totally by accident, not on purpose. It can happen, but people don't believe you, and it's a real shame that they don't, because it's just the truth. However, that's where the trouble comes in, because we were all hyped for Daggerheart last year. I mean, the community was excited, but then 2025 happened, and that brings us to this recent outrage, to this scandal. Because many within the Daggerheart and Critical Role community, and there's a lot of overlap between those two as you can imagine, are really, really worried right now because, well, there's no easy way to say this, but Daggerheart, it doesn't look like Critical Role are doing what they need to do to help it get inside all of our human orifices. Like covering it in Vaseline. Because there is the perception in the community right now that there is currently a severe, maybe even terminal general lack of excitement and hype around Daggerheart, and not just from the broader TTRPG community or even the Daggerheart community, but from Critical Role as well. After all, you might not even know this, but Daggerheart launches really soon, like May 20th. That's not very far away at all. And frankly, there's a lot of apprehension right now that Daggerheart might just be a project that comes and goes and makes no real impact on the market, sort of like Darrington Press's previous game, Candela Obscura. It failed to make inroads on the RPG hobby generally. Now, importantly, Candela Obscura was a bit more obscura. It was a niche horror RPG with a very bespoke setting, and Daggerheart is a broader fantasy project that definitely has a wider scope. But I mean, all the press and previews and big reveals and excited reviews of Daggerheart have kind of stopped. There's barely anybody outside the dedicated Daggerheart community talking about it right now, and even the Daggerheart focused Critical Role spin-off games and videos are performing worse these days than they were a year ago. So, what the heck? Has the hype ended? Is Daggerheart already in trouble before it's even out? That's what people are saying. People are starting to talk openly about that, and they're blaming Critical Role, accusing Matt Mercer and the gang of ignoring their premier, upcoming, and presumably most important product ever. It's all getting a little bit ugly. But on the other hand, who cares about hype for an RPG? You don't need hype to enjoy a game yourself. If it's a good game, you can enjoy it. Who cares what people think? Screw them, right? Screw them all to hell. Well, if that's all you cared about, you'd just be playing GURPS. But let's put aside the fact that it's probably good for the RPG market to have a gateway game for casuals, and I think that it could be Daggerheart. The simple fact is that you need hype for a new game because you need people to play that new game with, especially in person, and hype gets those people. Hype gets hoes. A game that has a swirl of hype and excitement around it in the TTRPG community is an easier pitch to your group of friends to play, or simply even to find other people playing it online. And that isn't a controversial position. It's really important. For example, my personal grey ghost, Matt Colville, always said that he was judging the success of his own Kickstarter campaign for his RPG, Draw Steel, not by the amount of crowdfunding money that it made in total amount, but by the amount of actual backers, actual people contributing money to the fund. And that's because you need a healthy population of players to take up a new game if it is to survive and thrive in the wild for longer than an instant. Otherwise, it's just dead on arrival, which is essentially my experience every time I'm sent into the wilderness. And whether we like it or not, marketing, hype, getting a buzz on, and that's also important to building up those numbers of early adopters. Because if it doesn't start rolling, if it doesn't pick up, then it puts other people off investing in the game. Their time, their effort, their money. People don't want to invest time and money into a product that could flop. So without all that hype and excitement, Daggerheart might be in real trouble from the get-go, especially considering that this is a Critical Role vehicle, so it should have a ton of hype. It is best placed to replace D&D, and if it does fail or crashes out, that will be a reflection on the broader Critical Role brand. So lots of people are worried, and I totally get their worry. This is shaping up to be a bit of a scandal in the community. Now, there are things that Critical Role can do, and personally, I think the most important thing is that they could announce that they are using Daggerheart for the next main Critical Role campaign 4. And frankly, in my opinion, this just needs to happen. It will generate so much goddamn chatter and excitement for Daggerheart, and holy hell, seriously, it will springboard the game into relevancy like immediately. This is the number one thing that they could do to push this game out. But they haven't committed to that. And in fact, Critical Role have really dodged answering any questions about the future of their games. We don't even know if there is a 4th campaign happening right now. And the fact that they haven't just confirmed that Daggerheart is the new main campaign system for Critical Role is super questionable to me. We're running out of time here, people. We need to see this soon. Now, there are people out there who are what I would describe as unreasonably upset about Critical Role right now. And I think that an important thing to remember is that there is a lot going on in Critical Role land. Mostly fire. Not a joke. The LA fires, they have had a massive impact on the personal lives of the Critical Role team, both in front of and behind the cameras. And that has caused problems and delays, and they're obviously trying to deal with that. So, you know, don't be mean. But also, there are some glimmers of hope that the game is at least doing okay even now. For example, the special edition of Daggerheart has sold out in every region, so clearly there's some sales and some excitement, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more marketing as we get closer to release. And hopefully the community will be assured in the success of Daggerheart, because to me, it's starting to look less like a slam dunk than it did last year. But ultimately, I personally think that Daggerheart has a strong foundation and is a good game, which is very important for, you know, a game. So I'm hopeful that the hype will follow. But again, the next Critical Role campaign, it needs to be Daggerheart for real. I'm gonna wag my finger if it's not. But let me know what you think. Oh, and check out my Patreon to help support the channel as well. It's only with your support that I can continue to do this content. So go to patreon.com/discourseminis for bonus content and to hang out. And a massive thanks to my patrons, especially CryptoKev. And I'll catch y'all next time. Bye bye.